Hey, my name is Anthony Trucks, former NFL athlete, American Ninja Warrior, NBC, and founder of the Shift Method. As a speaker, coach, and author, I go out into the world and teach people how to make shift happen. And this week on the Jesse T episode, I'm bringing some good to your ears.
Anthony Trucks, what is going on, my brother?
Nothing much, man. I'm ready to rock. I got my green tea. I got me. I got my tea. I'm trying to think of more things that rhyme with
Jesse
that.
T.
Yeah, Jesse T. Oh, what? Look at you. Just get
go.
it? I like it. Hell yeah.
Wordsmith, man. I used to be a little bit of a poet growing up when I was younger.
I didn't. I mean, that was I didn't get any basketball or rap skills as a black man. So sorry.
But you ended up playing sports at one of the highest levels.
I did. I did. I guess I did have some athleticism floating around in the background there.
Well, brother, I'm excited to have you on. We were introduced by the great and mighty and powerful Jordan Mendoza, a friend of mine, a client, someone I do business with in a few different ways. And I love surrounding myself by good people. So I said, who do you know that's an amazing person? And he immediately started talking about you. And here we are. So tell us a little bit about you, your story, who you are, your journey.
I'm a weird dude, man. Here's the thing. I'll give it to you this way. I am a regular guy. I just took my kids to school. I got a wife who nags me for stuff that doesn't make sense half the time, but I love her to death. I'm not one of those guys like old ball and chain. Like my wife is dope as hell, and I love her and everything about what she does. But I am as much as I'm a regular guy, I got a really irregular desire to be great and to serve the world, to do great things for people. So I'm not this person trying to be on a pedestal ever. But I'm also the guy that's trying to hide my gift, if that makes sense. And so in this space, man, what I do is I grew up in a really crazy environment. Identity has always been this weird thing I've battled, which we all have. It's kind of like this hidden thing within us. And so, man, I was given away at 3 years old in a foster care, grew up in a crazy system, adopted by an all-white family after 11 years in the system, which is statistically 75% of inmates in any prison in America are former foster kids. So I'm not supposed to be, doing a whole lot of stuff in my life. Less than 1% of us graduate college. Half the homeless population is comprised of us. And so I beat some odds, man, and I got a chance to get a college football scholarship to go play football at Oregon after not even playing till I was 14. My mom was diagnosed with MS, like a lot of crazy, man. But then I got a chance to play at Oregon, had a son my sophomore year. I don't recommend that. My high school sweetheart and I, we'd gone to college at Oregon and she came up there and we had a kid, met my real dad at the age of 20, like maybe a few months after my son was born. And got through it all. A lot of ups and downs, man. Almost like, I tore my shoulder, had a lot of weird things happen, but got a blessed opportunity to play in the NFL. Played in the NFL, got hurt in my third year because NFL stands for not for long, man. Because you're in and you get hurt and you're out. And next thing I know, like I'm looking at this life of not knowing who I am. I've gone through so many shifts already. And now I had a major one. Who am I without this thing? So whether you've played sports and left sports, military, left the military, lost a job, lost a relationship, lost a loved one, sent a kid off to college. When life changes in an area you've been like given a lot, you change. And it's hard to navigate those waters. And so I went to a fog. I gave too much energy to the wrong areas. My marriage fell apart. At one point, I didn't want to be here. I had 3 kids. Now we had twins. And so I wasn't even a present dad. Just the business sucked. Everything was going downhill. And I kind of survived for a couple of years. And my mom, she lost her 17-year-old battle with MS in 2014. And like, it put me on this trajectory of trying to figure out like, what do I do with this thing that she gave me, which is life, like an opportunity. She didn't birth me, but she gave me the opportunity to not beat those odds, right? To not be a statistic. And so I started trying to figure out like, how do I do this thing right? And I made 2 promises. One was I'm going to get it right. And 2, when I do, I'm going to do it for the people somehow. At the time I owned a gym because when I left the NFL, I'd come home and open a gym, navigating this whole thing. And it took 2 more years, dude, 2 more years to finally come out of the fog. And I woke up and I was like, this can't be my life. I got to figure this out. And I went through this really weird stretch of just immense growth and what I call my identity shift, like the biggest one, intentionally. Like I knew who I wanted to be to an extent. I started charting that guy, planning the guy. What does it look like? And I came with a process that allowed me to come out of those funky places and build the business, get my marriage back after 3 years divorce. I'm a present father. I'm in good shape. I take trips and I get to explore this cool world. So I made good on my personal promise, 1, to get my life back on track. And then I was introduced to this world. And I created this process called the Shift Method to then now do what the second promise was, which is to give back to the world. So everything I do is wrapped around either the main priority, which is my family. Before I came out here, I was hanging my wife in bed, just giving her a hug, holding her, because that for me is like, that's what matters. And I can't wait till the end of the day to sit with the kids, right? But at the same time, when I step into this space right here, I'm not here for me. I'm here for the person listening to me going, okay, cool story, bro. But how can it help me? Right. So this is wherever you want to go with it, man, that my time spent is not for me to like, look at me, I'm cool. Like, I don't need that. Like, I just need to know that I'm making good on promise too for my mom.
Beautiful, brother. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just sitting here thinking about all the powerful pieces to the story. And, I do a lot of work, spirituality with plant medicines and different things. And, you went through a few dark nights of the soul with a few things that you went through. And you were able to turn your pain into purpose. And the road you traveled on brought you here. And there's a reason why you have this message. You're here to deliver that message and to be able to show other people that there is a way through a divorce and getting, reunited and reconciling. And there's a way through dealing with a loved one with disease. And there's a way through reconciling relationships and starting over. And I mean, that's pretty much the concept for most human beings, that their souls have chosen to be here on earth. They're here for this experience. And all of a sudden, what do we do with it? And so I'm very much in alignment with a lot of those things, because I've experienced many of those things myself. And so I just want to start with kind of going back to reuniting with your dad, because I had a similar reuniting. My father was a 30-year junkie, essentially, and he finally turned it around the last 10 years of his life. And he went from shooting heroin every day to not shooting heroin every day. And he became a present father as best as he could be. And a present, we call him Papa. So Papa T to my kids. And he started showing up. And it was really interesting to see that change. And the pinnacle, the olive branch, after years of the emotional and the mental hurt and trauma and abuse that he put on us, I forgave myself for hating him. I forgave him for being who he was. And when my ex-wife and I, who we'll talk about that because that's another common theme that we have, when I was getting married with her, I reached out to him first, and I had my groomsmen all set up. I reached out to him. I said, Dad, I'm getting married and I'd love to, have you come down. He's in Boston, have you come down and be the best man at my wedding. And in his old school Boston, like Italian accent, he's like, what, you don't have any friends? And I'm like, no, I do have friends, but like, this is my way of like saying, I love you, and like extending the olive branch. And ever from there, it was like this beautiful relationship. And so I want to dive into your story about, meeting your dad. It was 20 years old when you met him. And how did that initial conversation go when you met your biological dad? And then where is that relationship today?
Yeah. Well, a very interesting dynamic, man. So whenever I was growing up, I didn't actually know his name. My mom is white. Her name's Denise Marie Trucks, which is where the Trucks last name comes from. And my birth certificate says my dad's name was Daniel Patrick O'Byrne. Now, O'Byrne is an Irish name. If my mom is white and my dad is white, then I am a weird oddity of humanity, because I'm a darker black man. Let's just put it that way. And so something's off. And for all my life, my mom kept saying, don't call him Tony. It was his dad's name. So I'm like, why does it say Daniel on the birth certificate? And my mom, just, give you some preface. My biological mom was called a pathological liar. She's got a lot of things that just like are mentally going on in there. And so it was just a weird growing up situation. And then 2003, I think it might have been 2003. Yeah. My mom moves up near my grandma, which is 2 hours north of me. I went to college in Oregon. So she's up in a town called Mount St. Helens. And somehow like they get my phone number. We're going back and forth. And I get on the phone with my grandma, and my real grandma, she's a sweetheart woman, but she's also kind of a little bit, she's very airy, but in a warm heart way, I guess. And so at one point, my high school sweetheart, Christina, who was with me in college, like we did the distance thing for 9 months, didn't work. She moved into my dorm room, and my RA was cool with it, which, hey man, appreciate you, bro. But I was good. We weren't doing anything crazy. She would literally just sleep there and go to her own school. She was going to school there too. And so anyway, she's like, hey, ask your grandma what your dad's last name is. Like, what do you mean? She's like, just ask him her name. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't think she knows. Just ask. So I ask. Oh, you know what, honey? Your mom said never to tell you. I'm like, well, okay. And then she goes, no, my girlfriend, well, she's actually fiance at the time. I had proposed to her at 18. So this time she's actually fiance. So my fiance is like, you better ask. And I'm like, I don't want. She's like, you ask. I ask, come on, grandma. No, you better ask. So I ask, grandma, look, I really need to know. She's like, hold on. She gets up, leaves the room, and goes, okay, your dad's last name was Osai Bovo. That's what she pronounced it, Osai Bovo. And I was like, how do you pronounce it? She's like, she pronounced it that way. She's like, how do you spell it? She tells me how to spell it. And it's pronounced Osai Bovo. So I was like, okay, great. We look up at the time on the internet. The only fast internet was colleges at the time. We plugged our computer in and literally
AOL
wired.
dial up.
It was right outside of dial up. I'm like the year after dial. We got to college. I was like, oh my gosh, no dial up because they had Ethernet ports. And I was like, this is magical speed. I'm in the future. And so we look it up. There's like 3 in the country with that last name. And so we live in Marietta, Georgia. And I call the number at one point, and I'm sitting there in a chair, and I'm like, "Hello, this is Anthony." He goes, "Hello, who's this?" Like, my name's Anthony, and I'm, "Who's this?" Like, "Anthony." So it's like this guy with this thick accent, and I ask him, I say, "Hey, my name is Anthony." I said, "Do you know a woman named Marie from Concord, California?" Now, most people don't know, but Concord and Martinez are neighboring cities. He says, "No, I don't know a woman from Concord, but I know a woman named Marie. I know a woman named Marie from Martinez." And I was like, "Oh," I said, "Well, did you date her?" He says, "Yeah, well, in 1983, I was dating her, and then she left me because she was pregnant with an Italian man's baby." I was like, "Oh, interesting. Well, I'm not Italian. So there might be a little thing." I said, "There's a possibility you're my dad." And he just kind of pauses and he doesn't say anything. And he goes, "Okay." Like, said, okay, like he got it. And so we go through this conversation of who I am. He has no idea I existed. This whole thing goes through. Now, the interesting relationship goes, it's like I first got to meet him. My first collegiate start was coming up that next year. Opportunity, true sophomore. Never, I'd been there a year. So I'm about to go into the next year trying to start for the University of Oregon, Division I team. There's a guy there was his fifth year senior, right? He's been there 5. I'm coming into my second. And so essentially, I was like, I want this job because if I meet my dad, he's about to play. We're going to play Mississippi State, 5 hours from Marietta, Georgia. He's going to drive and meet me. I'm like, if he comes to drive there, I want to be playing. I don't want to be just, what I'm saying? I want to be playing, dude. So, dude, I buckled in. I don't know what came over me, but I was like, I'm going to get this spot. And it was the hardest fought battle my coach that he's ever seen for position in all of his years. And I won the spot. I learned to play, but I dug in, dude. So true sophomore year, got to play national television. I got to start. We won the game. I got this game ball, and I got to meet my dad. And this is the actual ball from that day. And so it's kind of an interesting time to meet him. I have an older sister. I have a younger brother, which is kind of why you get this dynamic of like he was kind of absent, I guess, because he was out of wedlock. And, I just over the years kind of got to know him. I never saw him again in person. We did have conversations on the phone, and his wife, we had, it was a cool thing. We had to know them all. And then 9 years passed over time, just same thing. And then before he passes away from a cancer, he calls me and says, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I did know about you all those years."
Wow.
And that one, I was like, damn. And I think when he had told me, I was in a different space emotionally. Like you talk about forgiveness. I've learned forgiveness as a very interesting way to logically and emotionally navigate myself. But I got it. It was something where he just, in his mind, it was better for him not to be present for some reason. But yeah, he's like, I knew about you all the time. I was like, hey, well, I appreciate you telling me. And then I didn't even know at the time that he was, going through cancer, and he eventually passed away. And I found out later, but that was kind of, I think he needed to get it off his chest. But yeah, that's my dad's story. So there's no relationship now, but I would not say that was a bad one at all.
When he came out and said to you, "I knew about you all along," in that moment, if you can pinpoint that moment, was there an immediate knee-jerk reaction at the moment before you had time to deal with it and sit in discernment with it? Was there an emotion that came up, or was it just kind of like caught off guard and didn't have time to register?
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't a knee jerk. And to be quite honest, no part of me ever thought that he did. There wasn't like this, I kind of knew the whole time. None of that. It was like, I had no clue. He was really good at covering it up. Maybe it was the accent. I don't know, but like, I did not know. And it wasn't, it was, I think the way that he expressed it was, you could sense the sorrow, because I think if you imagine from his perspective, there's this son that he left, and as far as he knew, was just off living his life. And then you come to find that your son is not only a collegiate athlete, and he's going to school, and he's a father, and he's a good father. Then I'm playing in the NFL. Like, this is so there's got to be a like, man, I missed a lot, like there's got to be a weight. So I mean, if the selfish me would be in there, I'd be bothered. Yeah, part of me selfish, like you weren't there, and I was subjected to a whole different crazy experience because no one was present, my mom or you. But is it his fault? No. If anything, it was neglect or it was like selfishness, but it wasn't a malicious intent to hurt me. And I can only imagine like knowing what I turned into. You ever seen the movie Drumline?
Oh yeah.
the very beginning, like he gets his, scholarship to go to a school, and he goes to the ticket booth to go, get a ticket for a thing. And there's this guy in there, and he gets this ticket. He slides the graduation ticket underneath the thing to this guy. And he goes, "This is my name." He says his name. And he says, "I didn't go to jail. I didn't get anybody pregnant. I got a scholarship and going to play in the band and go wherever." And he says, "I've been standing here for 2 weeks, like every day looking at if I should give you this ticket. I realized I didn't need you up till now. I don't need you anymore." And like, it was just like, you could tell it was a release. And so for me, it wasn't like that anger. I didn't have that, but I can only imagine how, had I done that to my dad, that weight would have like hit him. And I didn't want to subject someone to that. There was no need. So I think the emotional part of me didn't have a knee jerk. It was like, oh, I felt him because I could hear it in his voice. And like, knowing who I was, what I'd accomplished, I could only imagine had to be some sense of like a little bit of sadness because of you just missing so much.
And you said that what type of cancer did he have?
I want to say it was a colon. It was, I can't remember the exact one, to be quite honest. It was like a colon, or like may have been like a prostate, whatever it was. It's not hereditary, which is good.
Good.
I did inquire about that. My sister kind of gave, maybe the rundown, but it was something like prostate or colon. I can't remember.
And you found out after he passed, like no one told you he was about to pass away. Like he passed, and then you found out he passed.
Yeah. And I found out months after. No one had told me. Yeah, because I'm not super close to that side of the family. Obviously, it's just hard to be. But yeah, I didn't know until well after.
Damn, brother. It's a powerful story, man. My finality with my dad was, he was quote unquote a bachelor towards his last few years. He had just decided to live alone, and he was living in a house in Boston. And I was here, oddly enough, right next to Marietta, Georgia, was where I live. Mm-hmm. And I get a phone call saying they found my dad, and he had been laying on the floor for 2 days. Not anything, at that point, drug related. I think it was just the toll of the years of abuse that he put on himself finally caught up with him. And after the 10 years of being straight, his body gave out. And so, I was able to go up there, have some finality for me, which was great because I needed that. And so just taking care of all the arrangements and everything. But it's interesting because what I've learned in this whole process of life is, my dad, I cleaned up his blood off the floor because I guess he, after death, there were some, gases that build up and the body can kind of rupture and things like this. And so I've had that experience. I've held my mom who, you talk about your mom, you said had MS for 17 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom had ovarian cancer for many years, 8 years. She was only supposed to live for 1, lived for 8. She was ex-military, so she was a badass, definitely hard person, stubborn. And she decided to live for another 7 years on top of her 1-year diagnosis. And I was with her side, but when she passed, and then my daughter, my ex-wife, and I, she passed away at 7 days old. So I've been surrounded by death, and I held her in my arms till she passed away. And I always tell these stories about my daughter, my mom, and my dad because it's given me so much, number one, forgiveness and purpose and healing to talk about these things. But there's so many people that go through these types of things. So the things that you're going through, I've been through similar things. There's so many people out there that hear our podcasts and hear our message that it gives them the power and it gives them the permission, in a sense, to share their journey, and they can start their healing process as well. So I just want to say thank you as the first listener and viewer of this episode for your message, man. And then secondly, the second thing that stuck out to me, just because, it's a little bit selfish, is, another relationship thing that you've experienced, talking about being married, divorced, remarried. Mm-hmm. I'm recently divorced a year ago, but we're figuring things out. We're working on things, and we're looking towards potential reconciliation. And so this is something that speaks to me specifically as like, someone who's going through it. So talk a little bit about that experience. Yeah. For you, how is that for you?
We're going through it in a great way now. It's a positive, to be quite honest. And just as kind of like a real quick touch on what you had talked about, I think there's something to everything we experience. You get to choose if it's a strength or like to help you become stronger, if it's a weight that takes you down. And I think what the benefit of all these moments and situations are, because there's so many, we would seriously sit here for days going through the entire story of both of us to figure out, like, there's so much stuff.
For sure.
And a lot of people won't make it past a single one of those. Like, one of those things will shut someone down for their life. Somebody passed away, and that death takes 2 lives, the person that passed and yours, because you never wake up from it. And what I've noticed is just like kind of like fitness, if you lift heavy weights, you get strong. So that weight you couldn't lift becomes your warm up. And now you can do more, lift more, you're stronger. It just makes life better and easier. And I think life provides its own emotional weights, moments that you have to learn to lift. And when you do lift them, man, that's how you get strong. It's not that we're special. We just lifted the weight, dude. That's what I want everybody listening to hear is like, I am not unique. I have different unique situations, but the only thing that's unique about me is how I handled it. And I handled it the way anybody can handle it. Like, change the way you look, change the way you see things, change your mindset. Like, you have the fish behind you. Mindset's everything. It really is that. Do you do that? You're good. Now, relationship wise. So in 2008, I tore my shoulder, came home, and I lost sense of who I was. I'd honestly been this football guy. So now it's like, well, who's Anthony without football? Like, right. And I tell people metaphorically, picture like the fruit of your labor being an actual fruit. Let's say it's an apple. And the fruit of my labor, my entire adult childhoodish life to adulthood was football. So I'm the fruit. It's the fruit of my labor. And when that falls off the tree, I am that fruit. I fall off the tree, whether it's your money, whether it's like your material object, you lose your house or car, lose your job, lose your bank account, whatever it is. If you have attached yourself to that, that's the fruit of your labor, and you fall off the tree and you feel like a fruit. And then like the fruit can last a little bit. You can hang around. You can kind of like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm cool. After a while though, man, that fruit gets rotten because it can be picked up, taken to the store by the farmer. You could buy, take it to your house, but eventually it gets all rotten and corroded inside. And we feel like that. And I felt like that. I came home from football and who's Anthony, man? And so I was neglecting everything in my life. I neglected my wife. We had these two more kids, twins. So she's at home with a 4-year-old and 2 newborn twins, dude. And I'm at the gym all day, this business, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., trying to, make something of myself because I wanted my identity back in a strong way. And I was focused on that fruit, to be quite honest. And what I realized, which honestly is one of the reasons that I shifted, was I lost sight of the fact that I and we, all of us, have never been the fruit. We have always been the tree. And when you finally realize what that means, like as the tree, if you aren't tending to the rest of the branches or the soil or none of that, like the rest of the fruit dies. So sure enough, football died. So then my marriage falls apart and my parenting, all that stuff dies. And so one of the fruits was the marriage I neglected, just was. And so next thing I know, my wife, she steps out. It's the best way that she had an affair, man. And it was a heavy one, dude. It broke me. Because I grew up without a family in foster care. So not having that family, like I felt like I was subjecting my kids to a similar upbringing as me with no present father and family unit. And then like this woman I'd known since high school, like this is my, an ace in the hole. And it was the separation, it's all of it, right? This was like not being present, her needing me not being there. And she didn't do anything to maliciously hurt me. And I don't say this for people to think like I'm trying to make it small. It was big. I take nothing from her decision. She made a horrible choice. Horrible. Like, no, there's nothing to that. However, understanding that it takes 2 people in a relationship to get her to a point where she even thinks she needs to make a choice in the first place. Like the choice, bad. Getting to that choice, 2 people, right? So when I owned that, which was way later in life, I finally got it. But, the beginning of this is like she steps out, man, seeking something to fulfill her needs. Like, because I wasn't doing it. I was just doing my thing. And it was just complete neglect. And we had a 3-year divorce. We got divorced, legit divorce, like paperwork, everything, custody battles. We were at the courthouse, mediation, all that. Right. We had the who gets the kids and when they get the kids and pick up, drop off. I'm not talking like, oh, we're just out of the house, like separate, I'm talking about like assets parted, divorced, documented. And 3 years of this craziness. And I hated her, dude. I was like, if she disappeared, I'd be cool with it. Like, I didn't want her to actually like die. But I'm like, bro, if you just go off somewhere, I'll be totally fine with that. And it was a back and forth, man. And it was just this weird arguments. You know what it is? Like because they know you, they can poke. So she was back and forth text message. They can say things that they know are going to rile you up, and you're in these conversations, and I'm messing up dates I would go on because I'm still weirdly connected. As much as I want to say, like, I was over her, like I wasn't over her. And here's the funny thing is we went through back and forth, and I finally started growing. And here's what I realized when I finally grasped, because she wasn't the best mom. She's a phenomenal mom, but wasn't the best mom, right? So that she'd have parties at the house. The kids got to stay in the room. Hey, kids, don't come downstairs. We're drinking downstairs. The people are there till like 4 a.m. One time I dropped the kids off with her, and my buddies asked me to go out to a bar in two towns over. I dropped them off. I go home real quick to change, and I come back and I go to the bar, and she's the bar. What are you doing right now? Like, oh, they're with my brother. It's like I went and got my kids and went home. Like, bro, this is crazy, right? Now, she's not a horrible human. But I think that there was part of this was going on. I think she had felt some shame, and I kept compounding that and compacting it too, because I just kept blaming her. How dare you? How dare you ruin your family? Da, 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 da. I think I kept compounding, but then I had my moments of growth, and I realized my faults in it. I realized her fault in it. I realized that I wanted my kids to have a great mom, and I realized that if I could do anything to help that, it would be to like take my ownership and release the shame as best I could from her and truly forgive her, like truly forgive her. And when I forgave her, I was released of this attachment to her, right? And so, granted, 3 years apart, dude, and I start growing. Now, little do I know, she's growing. Her brother had given her a book by Joyce Myers, and she finally came to Christ. She said she woke up one day on a Sunday morning. I had the kids. She had nobody to call, hungover, lonely at like 30 years old. And she's like, this is not supposed to be my life. And she went on her own path, and she won't admit it. And maybe I'm just trying to be all like it had to do with me in some way, but I feel like giving her the grace to not have to feel like if she tried to grow, I'd shame her again. I feel like that had to have created some kind of emotional space. I don't know, right? But she started doing her thing, and then like when she would like message me before, it'd be like arguments. I would just be like, okay. I didn't even get engaged anymore with it. And I think that was a catalyst to realize, like, dude, I don't even have this connection to this guy that I used to. And it started something. So then we started, it was like amicable text. It wasn't fighting anymore. There was none of that. And so what ends up happening, as my phone likes to make noise, I forget how many alarms I have in this thing. My apologies.
No worries,
and
brother.
so eventually at one point she reaches out. It's like, hey, I want to get out of this small town. I want to take a trip with the kids for a few weeks to Costa Rica. It's safe down there. And she's like, I want you to come down just because I know that you can't be away from the kids that long. And I wouldn't. I'm like, nah, my kids, I'm with my kids, man. And so she's like, I'll get my own place. You get your own place. Like, we're separate. No big deal. Just we'll be in the same area, but we'll not be together. So I was like, whatever, I'll do it. I ran my business from afar, right? I can do it from the internet. I could right now, as far as I could be in the middle of Bolivia, like it's just the internet. And so I could have been anywhere. So I was like, I'll go to Costa Rica and do it. So I went out there and I'm working. And the best way that I can explain what took place is a very interesting dynamic of I started having conversations. But what it was I got to meet someone for the first time that I'd known for 16 years. Vastly different woman. Like, her perspective, what we could talk about. There wasn't arguing, there wasn't fighting, there wasn't blame. We both took our ownership. Like, it was just a back and forth conversation. Now, before I'd gone down there, I was talking to a woman, and it was like, like talking about like dating, having a date when we get back. So anyways, we kind of spend 3 weeks there just getting to know each other. It's not a rekindling though. Just, it's not a rekindling of this thing. We're just talking. Like, I'm like, she's cool. All right, cool. Like, I'm going to have a good baby mama. Like, we're going to be good. and then we come back, and then I'm about to go on a date. And the day before the date, she knows about the date because I obviously told her I got to, whatever. I somehow came up. She goes, I got to talk to you. I'm like, what? She's like, well, I know you're going on a date tomorrow. She's like, but I want to try to make this work again. Now, what I didn't tell you is at one point in the middle of our separation, we did try and make it work. We got about 6 months, and it all broke apart again. So I'm like, there's no way in hell. This chick is crazy. And so, yeah, dude, I was like, okay, you want to try it again? I don't know. And I went on my date, and she ruined my date. Like, the thought being planted in my head made me think about this. Damn, I've been wanting this woman since the day I got married, and now she's finally here. And do I pass on this? Like, do I let this person walk away and then hold this grudge? And I knew people weren't going to get it. And so, like, I knew that I had great friends that were there for me in the middle of this craziness. And I was like, look, I came back from the date that was kind of ruined. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, here's the truth. There's no way we do this without the blessing of the people that have been around me when you were doing your crazy. Because I can't do this and I'll lose them. I'll lose my best friends. And I was like, the only way it works is if you talk to them. Now, you're going to have to go find your own way to have conversations. You got to figure this out. Here's who they are. You have their numbers. Like, here, figure it out. So I had gone up to Portland to film this product creation with Brandon Burchard for a fitness product that we were creating at the time. And I go up there and I come back, and like 3 of my friends reach out and go, hey, man, we had great conversations with her. And we talking about a great conversation. Like, oh, well, she drove like an hour to see me, and we sat down and like we talked. I was like, interesting. And one of my buddies was like, yeah, dude. He's like, I dug in. He says, I told her some tough things, and she took it like a woman. He said, I was like, oh, okay. And I go,
can you share a little context on some of the things, like maybe not specifics if it's personal, but just as far as like her tone and what impressed them about her, and essentially down the road gave the blessing?
I don't know. I have not even dug into the conversations. I haven't opened up in all of our years. I haven't wanted to go back and say, what did you guys say? Because thing was, that wasn't my space and my time. That was for her to get to know what was going on around me, I think. And it was not, it was for her to get the blessing of whatever it needed to be. And for some reason, it was cathartic for her. She's actually closer to some people in my life than I am. Not closer, but like she's got a depth of a connection in great ways because there was that opening of like, this is what I'm going. Because for years, it was never her fault, And so for them to see that, so I don't know 100%, but I know the tonality was apologetic, understanding, communicative, and I think some of them came away also understanding my flaws. Because whenever you're in a position of like, you hate this person, obviously it's one-sided and there's always two sides of a story. So some of them came back like, hey, bro, like, and you also said this, but like, I get that maybe you were a little over, kind of being a little bit overboard with that, or, a little embellishment, we'll call it. And it's like, okay. Right. So I think what ended up happening was I got their blessings, and in doing so, like, all right, let's try it again. And it started like going on dates, and then we started hanging out, and then it just turned into, we're almost 5 years, 4 years, 2016, we in almost 5 years now. So in October, we'll be 5 years back together in an amazing marriage, dude. Like it is so much better than it ever could have been. And people talk about that all the time. Like, you don't get back in the same marriage to the same person because nobody ever changes. Like, no, people change. 1,000% people change. And at the same capacity, there's people that don't get it. I did a podcast with Tom Bilyeu, Impact Theory. And in the beginning, I start the story, and some guy on the comments goes, the moment he said he got back with his ex, I was out. And somebody else comments, you idiot, you should have paid attention because if you listen, you'll understand it. And I'm like, yeah, what that person said. Because people don't get it. People aren't going to understand it. And it's not for me to make them understand. I'm going to tell the story. If you get it, great. If you don't, that's okay. Because what I've found is every single person who's heard this story and gone, oh, I could never do what he did. They are, when you look at their lives, they're living funk. It's a little bit of, because all I did was say, look, no one's perfect. I have my flaws. She had her flaws. Some things are deal breakers. I would go through my stuff 17 times over to have what I have now. Had I listened to other people, I'd still have to deal with the problems of the back and forth, and the exes, and then some other dude like raising my kids kind of thing. Like it's just a weird, there's a lot of dynamics to it, dude. And I didn't get back with her because of the kids. That had nothing to do with it, quite honestly. But like I wanted to have an amazing marriage because the root of me, the only reason I hated her was because I still loved her.
Yep.
And I finally had this woman, and it's been a journey of understanding how to communicate, how to talk, like how to, talk about things. We never bring that stuff up anymore. I never have even an ounce of trust issues. There's something about the way that it works now that we trashed that old relationship, and there's something so much better in place that man, I would put my marriage against any in the world right now. Like it is damn cool. Are we perfect? Hell no. Like not even close, bro. We were just arguing this morning about stupid stuff with the dishes and the damn, but there's such an anchoring of depth there. Like no one could there's no woman or man that could enter into our marriage and break it at this point. There's no level of like, envy or shame. Like I celebrate her. She celebrates me. There's full support. I feel completely free to be me, as do I believe she does. I feel wholeheartedly supported, as do I think she does. So it's something that's cool, man. And it's there, but I had to look at it like the stock market. This may make sense as we end kind of this segment. We can go wherever we want from here. But I knew that at the end, I wanted it to be up here. Just like I invest in a stock, I want it to be up here. And I know that to get here, it's going to be the ups and downs along the journey to get up there. And I knew that at the end, I wanted to be sitting in a house, in a rocking chair, maybe sipping some tea, sitting next to the mother of my kids, right? And whatever it looked like to get there, I don't know. But I know there's going to be some highs and lows. People I've lost along the way. People I've gained along the way. Situations that have been difficult to experience. There's been a lot. And to be quite honest, like I'm not going to sit here and say there aren't nights when I have weird thoughts of like, going back there. And my heart hurts for a moment. But then like I realize like if I live from that emotion, I'll ruin what I have right now. If I start talking about it or arguing, like if I ever was to throw that back at her, it would honestly, it'd be like putting a crack in a windshield. It's waiting to crack open, So it's a release, and it's a vastly cleaner, more free, more amazing relationship than I could ever imagine.
It's absolutely profound, brother. And it is very possible for people to repair relationships, and it's very much possible for people to change.
Oh
There
yeah.
has to be intentional work. There has to be a catharsis. There has to be a forgiveness. There has to be, due diligence as you move forward. There has to be agreements between both
Absolutely.
parties, you know?
Everything.
So
Yeah.
what I want to know is, for you personally, for your 3 years with like a 6-month try to reconcile, but didn't work kind of deal before you did reconcile, what was
Yeah.
some of the profound insights you learned about yourself personally as a human in terms of how you operate in the world, relationship wise, business wise? What'd you learn? And then also maybe for the listeners, some of the tools that you were using, a book, a podcast, a daily practice, meditation, something that you were doing to be able to continue that growth moving forward during that tough time.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, some of the lessons, I guess, about myself are the aspects of whether or not like I need someone to make me happy, right? I need someone to do something to support me. I always look to her like a relationship I read should be this, this, and this. And what's beautiful is like I found out like I can have whatever the hell I want in a relationship, and the world doesn't have to care or matter. Like for me, for example, I love this work I do. I love talking and sharing. Obviously, I can talk forever. She doesn't care to hear it. And it bothered me for a while. I'm like, but you're the closest person to me. Don't I want to be able to celebrate and share with you? And she kind of cares, but doesn't really care. But not that she doesn't care. For her, she was raised that work is work. It's not fulfillment, right? It's a very interesting dynamic for me because I love my work. I'm fulfilled by it. She's not. So I used to place this meaning on it. And so here's one of the biggest lessons is no moment or situation has any meaning except the meaning we place upon it.
Yep.
Period. If you can live with that singular lesson, it changes the game. So if somebody cuts you off, you can be like, oh, these are horrible people trying to make my day bad, or they're in a rush to get to the hospital, somebody's sick. There could be a massive amount of meanings around it. And so what I realized was like all these things that she was doing that I was placing a negative meaning on was just my brain spinning. And so if I just didn't freak out, I could have a conversation about it and get the real meaning behind it. And if the meaning did kind of suck, okay, well, let's say that just lets you know, like that kind of sucks. Like, so whether it's like certain things she does, whatever, I'm like, hey, I'll bite my tongue. I'll find the right moments now. Like I also know that for me, I like to get into it and figure it out now. It doesn't work for her.
Right.
And marriage is a separate entity. If I want the marriage to have what it needs, I have to serve the marriage, even if it means I have to come out of pocket. Right. So I have to invest. So I know my marriage, it needs peace. Right. So if she does something crazy, the moment to handle it isn't right now at the dinner table. So I bite my tongue and I hold the thought. I don't say much, but I will find a space and time where I can vent and express what's going on. So we're not in a heated environment and we're not in an argument, and I can figure out the meaning behind what she meant or why she said that or what took place. So now it doesn't escalate at all. It's a conversation that helps. And then when that comes around, it comes around again, a similar moment. She'll do her thing. And hey, I give one of those looks and she, okay, right. So now we're good. We're going to talk about it. I get it. And now we can progress. So for me, a lot of it early on was like, don't place, meanings on it just because you're in an emotional space, my guy. Like that's not necessary. It doesn't have to happen that way. And in doing so, it alleviates a lot of the crazy thoughts I had floating around in my head that did not need to be there. And so that was a piece of it. And I think some of like the lessons, I won't call it lessons, but the helpful tools. One book I read was a good book, was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey's. And there's a lot of things. Start with the end in mind. Seek first to understand and be understood, which honestly is my favorite. Be first, put first things first that are important. The marriage is first, put that first, right? So one that was huge was a seek first to understand. I find that in all my communications, our communication right now, my wife, clients, my children, we're good at just saying things, but we're coming from our frame of mind. And when you come from your frame of mind, somebody knows it is not their frame of mind. Therefore, whatever lesson you want to give, what you want to share, they're not listening. They're almost put this way, they're hearing you, but they ain't listening. You know what I mean? They're just, okay, chop, 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 chop. Wait, were you done talking yet? And you go back and forth. And so for me, I have been very, very instrumental in our marriage of being able to figure out the meaning. In all my relationships, I want to figure out the meaning that you're having. Then I want to figure out how to understand you in a way that I can communicate to you that I understand you. So my wife's got something going on and we're arguing or something. She used to go back and forth and we both knew we both weren't getting each other. So we're just fighting and it never ended. It kept coming around again and again. And so what I realized, like this book was helpful whenever we would have these conversations towards like till now like I want to understand and I'll listen. Okay. So what it sounds like I'm hearing is you want da 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 da, or you think da 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 da. She goes, yeah. Okay. I get that. So understanding that, let me share what I think or how this might make. And now what happens, because they know I understood, they're open to hearing me. For example, if somebody walks up to you, go to the car dealership, and a person tries to start selling you on a truck, but they don't even know that you want a car. Are you going to listen about the truck? No, I'm not listening about the truck. You can tell me how great the truck is all you want. I don't care. You don't even understand what I need, right? But then if they start talking and they go, oh, so it sounds like you need something that has a certain speed, can, put people into it and tell these kind of things. Okay, great. So it sounds like you want a car. Yeah. But from base what you're telling me, I think if that's correct, a truck might actually be useful. Let me share with you why. Well, because they've listened and they heard, now I'm open to listening about the truck. You see what I'm saying? It could have been the right thing, but if I don't think you understand me, then I'm not, it doesn't even matter. I'm not going to listen. So the moment you can understand people, now it's like, oh, so that for me, like that book was pivotal in just understanding communication for humans. And I literally nowadays just listen in the beginning and I go, okay, here's what I'm hearing. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Here's my thoughts. And now they listen to me, So that in and of itself is huge for kids and for parenting. Outside of that, meditation's great. Exercise is great. And here's the big key. Find something that makes you happy. And I'm not saying joyful or gives you peace, makes you happy, because when you do something that makes you happy and you come back to the relationship happy and they do the same thing, there's nothing but two happy people. That's beautiful. It's easy to manage. Our relationship is easy to manage right now because I don't lean on her to like listen to my whole business stuff. I got people that I talk to that I can put that energy into, right? But I come back happy, she comes back happy, and there's joy in the house at all times.
Beautiful, brother. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. That's it's powerful and it's intentional and it's giving yourself space, giving her space, being able to show up for each other. I mean, these are core foundational tenets of a beautiful relationship, and it sounds like it's been a hell of a reconciliation, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
As far as those are some profound shifts in your life, right? And you love to say shift happens, right? And,
yeah.
Play on words. Where did you come up with this shift method? And tell us what it actually does for people in their lives or their businesses. What is it?
So the shift method came of my crazy life of it, like looking at my life, like how did I get here? Because there's a lot of things I did accidentally, and we all do them accidentally. We figure out how to navigate weird, tough situations, right? And then also, I had to figure out why it was. Like, why did I do that? How did I do that? And so some things were inherent for me, oddly. But then it's kind of like the athlete who is gifted that tries to teach other athlete how to run faster. It's just like, run faster. I don't know how, but just do it because I don't know what it's like to go through not being fast. You know what I mean? So for me, I was like, okay, I don't want to be that guy. How do I teach this? Like, what happened? So I went through and like started understanding like neuroscience and how like neuroplasticity works and reprogramming stuff, we'll call it. I'd learn about how psychology works. So I'm talking to you about right now is just psychology. Seek first, understand. It's a psychological concept, really. It's like understanding how we think. And so the method came out of saying, okay, great. If I want an individual to make shift happen, when I say that, literally it's anything you want to have happen in your life. It sounds broad, but it's really not. At the end of the day, we all have dreams and aspirations that we want to accomplish in some capacity. The separation is the way we live our life from an identity level. Like, who am I at a core? And the way I can explain identity, it's who you are and how you do things. Like when you're not thinking about who you are and how you do things, just your natural like flow of life. It's just you. And what happens is we handle problems, we handle situations in certain ways that are automatic. The automatic things that we do, that's our identity. And because of how that runs our life, we have certain things in life. And so if you think about what you have in life, it's not what you know, it's who you are and what you do with what you know. And so when I look at the shift method, the idea is like, all right, how can I shift somebody into that version of themselves, that identity of themselves, that just different automatic response, different automatic options, different work. You're just a different person. Because if you think about any person that's successful, if you ask him, hey, who were you when you were unsuccessful? They'll go, oh, literally they say this, oh man, I was somebody else back then.
Yep.
Every time they do it, like I was a different person. Yeah. That's the red flag, people. That's right there is your North Star. Like it exists. People have been somebody, but then nobody charts that. Nobody thinks about that. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like they live their life. And so what I've noticed is like, well, what if I plot something and plan it and structure it for people? And it comes in two ways. One, it comes from understanding who you want to be, creating that ideal identity, the person who is who you want to be, that has the things you want to have. Because if you were that person, You already have those things. If that was who you are, you'd have the money, you'd have the car, because you'd be the person that saves and doesn't spend money on stuff. You'd be the person that works out. Like, you'd be that person because that's what it's, you'd have those things. So if you aren't that person, how do you become that person? Well, first you figure out who that person is. You literally design that human, because we've all been designed in some way. We just didn't know it. Teachers, preachers, coaches, leaders, all by the time that we were, teenagers, we went off to the world with this identity and we never looked back. We didn't realize that we didn't have any input in it. So now you can choose who you want to be. And then it happens through actions. It's all like, we'll talk habits, right? Essentially habits, it's you are what you consistently do. Really? There's vastly more to it, but there's a lot that stops us from doing things, a lot that makes we do the wrong habits. We borrow somebody else's and get to midlife and go, I don't like myself. I don't know who I am. Well, yeah, you were borrowing Bob's habits. So of course, you didn't think about doing your own things. So the shift method walks you through a process to craft your ideal identity of who you want to be that has what you want, and then helps you get into a ridiculous new cadence of life, like daily. Like I look at, how do I teach you to fall in love with the day, not just the destination? Because if you fall in love with the day and it's the right things, you'll become the person you want to become. Because we've become the person right now, this moment right here. Right now, dude, we are this person. But it's because of who we're being each day to get here. So if you want to be somebody new, like, okay, change the way you are being each day. That's it. And so we craft that. All this big thinking comes down to 5 steps, 5 things you do every day. You do these 5 things they're planned in advance. And I guarantee you, you come out in the backside 90 days from now, if not completely shifted, you're like at least 80% of the way there. You just keep the same momentum going, and you'll wake up and look back one day and go, damn it, I don't know who that old dude was. I'm so happy to be here. And so the shift method is that. What's beautiful is, because it's tied to actions, there's an achievement you get to have. Like for me, it's like life gives you those things that stretch you. So for a lot of people, they want to like start a business, right? Beautiful. We're going to give you the business strategies and actions, knowing that I'm just giving you these actions that will create a business. I'm giving them to you so I can put you in situations to shift you. It's an interesting dynamic, but what's cool is we teach people to achieve and transform simultaneously. And it's a pretty damn cool thing.
So I'm in a similar business where I have a client family, as I call them, and there's a lot of people that get into financial planning and wealth management as a client that don't really understand the process, or they don't really know what to expect. And most of it's behavioral and emotional, and it's habitual. It's the things that we weren't taught. It's the habits. It's the, don't take that, midlife crisis and go buy a Corvette just because you want to go impress some younger girls. Like, there's these mindset tricks and kind of pieces that go along with it. But the idea is also, once you give people the tools, it's just like that old cliche or that old kind of analogy, you can lead a horse to water, but will you make it drink? Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How are you helping your clients to see the light and or act on the tools that you're providing them?
Yeah. So that's the thing. The tool is the action. That's how it works. So what I notice is there's a world full of information. We are in this epidemic of shelf esteem. You buy a lot of stuff and it goes on a shelf in our house and it's there. We feel good. I bought the book. It feels good, but I don't do anything. I don't read it, And then if I do, maybe I'm one of the 10% of people who actually read the book. It goes on a shelf of my mind. I can go rattle it off and tell somebody else exactly what they're supposed to do. And they'd be like, oh, are you doing it? Oh, I haven't had time to get it done. You ain't doing it. You're not doing it. So there's a reason that the 1% are the 1%, because about 1 to max 3% of people are really taking action on stuff. And so what I end up doing is I said, okay, well, if that's the problem, what if I just stop giving people more information and get them to just use what they've already got, give them a system to actually implement what they've, and I don't mean, when I say implement, it's not like this strategy. It's like, I'm going to give you a life structure. Literally, the whole process goes to like your morning routines, your healthy choices, what projects you have to get done, where you're finding joy in like your life experience. And we structure it all out and plan it. And we can look and go, if you do this for 90 days, here's the kind of person you'll become. And at the same time, if you do these things, here's what you will have tangibly at the very end of it. And so when I work with individuals, it's like, oh, we're going to bring this all down, because here's the biggest thing, Jesse. The reason people don't take the action is overwhelm. And people will say it's fear. Fear is this overwhelming fear. It's this overwhelming something. Or it's just too many steps, or I don't know where to start, or I got a bunch of ideas. I don't know which one's the most important. What should I'm just going to go do. I want to watch Netflix. Right. So it always comes into this, I just stop. And so like, I'll tell myself, I'm going to do it next Friday. And I don't do it because there's so much. So what I'm really good at, I can take big ideas and chunk them down to micro steps. I can get you to eat the elephant like it's a piece of sushi, right? I'm like itty bitty little bites. But what's cool is like your stomach gets bigger over time. You get to do more, gain more, and improve it. Actually, you can take on more. But for me, I don't give you like, here's a strategy to apply. I say, here's a strategy. Here's what you do on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 90 days. And a lot of them are like 15, 20-minute tasks. Little ones. And the more you do it, because of how we're built as humans, there's an investment bias. The more I invest in something, the more return I want. When I'm investing in like the time of 20 minutes a day, I want a return of that business being launched. I get a return of that pride and confidence. If I've been doing this for 90 days, 3 months, you ain't taking that from me. Oh, you don't know nothing. Hell, well, I don't know nothing. Hell no, I don't. I know everything. Bro, I spent 90 days doing this. You tell me I don't know anything? How dare you? There's a sense of like ownership and identity now. We shift to be that person doing that thing. Tell Susan, think about a Susan. I'm just making a name up. Susan, she's like, I don't work out too much. Her, Facebook's full of like weird pictures of like horses and Indian tables, because people do that in their house. So, I'm talking about dream catchers and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so nothing on her social media. Then all of a sudden she goes to workout class on day 1. And the workout class is cool. She says, got to work out in. Well, by like 2 weeks, she's out there posting pictures of her, like, working out. Cool. By 3 weeks, she's got salads in front of her thing. Okay, cool. By like 9 weeks, this chick is out here showing yoga pants with the backwards butt, stick my leg out picture. You know what I'm saying? It's all different. And if you go to Susan and say, you don't know nothing about the gym, she'll be like, hold on. Hell, I don't know nothing about the gym. I've been hitting the gym for the last 3 months. Talking about I don't know nothing. There's a different ownership, right? So when I come into people's lives, I give them some strategy, but really what I'm doing is I'm telling them, here, all the ideas you got, here's how you pull those apart, look at them simplistically, and here's what you do in this day. And so what they get to do is take a breath and breathe. And they wake up on the day and they just do what has to be done that day. A lot of people can get it done by 10 in the morning. 10 a.m. it's done and you're off with the rest of your day. But here's what's cool. The rest of your day, you aren't thinking about all of the things you have to get done. I didn't get done. There's anxiety. No, because you've already planned and you know when it's going to get done in the future. So it's off your chest. So when I'm with my wife, I'm with my wife.
Yep.
When I'm getting a workout, I'm at the workout. When I'm in my client, I'm on a podcast. I'm present in the podcast. I'm not stressed off that. So I get to live life in joy, but amazing progress and pride being built up.
Discipline equals freedom, man. The things that you do every day create you and they guide you. And also it allows you to be where your feet are when you want to be with your kids and get down on the ground with your kids if they're young and play with them. And, if you're working out every day, a lot of entrepreneurs who are successful have a lot of common themes. They take care of themselves. They're able to because you take care of yourself, you can take care of other people. You can run until you're 50, 60, 70 years old because you're taking care of yourself. And so your kids that are coming up 10, 20, 30 years old, you can be meaningfully, powerfully connected to them as they grow up. And so I think that a lot of people that are listening to this, shift does happen. Shift can happen. You just have to be the inspiration and you have to have somebody like an Anthony Trucks or whoever's in your life to help you kind of get that North Star guided and then implement the strategy. So listen, there's a ton of things I personally want to learn more about you and talk more about. Definitely American Ninja Warrior and all these other things that are on my mind. But we both got to bounce here in a couple of minutes. So I want to do a part 2 down the road, but I want to be the first one to kick off. Thank you so much. The first one to kick off, the gratitude train from the audience and the listeners and the viewers. You're amazing. You're mighty. You're powerful. I'm super pumped to be on the journey in life and connect with you. He's Anthony Trucks, the founder of the Shift Method, badass human being. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of the Jesse T Show.